Hey guys, I want to take just a second to talk about the CAGED system for guitar. It's something that I find a lot of my students already know or kind of understand on their own, but they haven't quite thought about it in an organized fashion. And the CAGED system ultimately is going to help you know a bunch of chord voicings all over the neck, and also just find chord tones so that if you're soloing, you kind of have an idea of where you can find all the notes for a certain chord. So CAGED, C-A-G-E-D, is simply an acronym for those chords, C-A-G-E-D, and it's the shapes, C-A-G-E-D. So everybody probably knows those chord shapes. At least if you're watching this video, I assume that you've at least gotten that far. And the idea is to simply take these chord shapes and slide them up the neck. So if we're taking a C chord, and we want to slide this up the neck, you know, we can't just do that because we have open strings. You know, notes on those notes are all part of the C chord, and we need to move them with us, you know, with the rest of these notes. So you have to kind of rearrange your fingers, and then use your first finger like it's a capo, and then you can take this chord up the neck. And every time you move it up a fret, you're moving up a half step. So if this is C, this is D flat, this is D, E flat, or D sharp, E, and so on. You know, one way you know that if you're playing this chord, that this note is C, and this note is C. So the name of the chord always comes from the root. So you got to know where the roots are for each of these chord voicings, C, A, G, E, D. And that way, when you play it up here, this note here is an F, and this is an F. So that's the root of the chord if we're playing the C shape up here. So that's an F chord. And you can do that with all of these. You know, here's E. I know you already know this one. You already know the A shape too, probably, right? You play it like this, or maybe like this. So that's an A, B flat, B, C, and so on. So let's take one chord and find all 5 of those shapes. Let's just do C. How about that? So we already have C shape here in open position, piece of cake. And then we know this is the C shape. This is C, this is using the A shape, I'm sorry. This is the A shape, and this is the C chord. Now we got to find the G shape. So here's G. We want to slide up, we know that this is the root. So there's a C there, and we're going to make this look like a G chord. So your first finger is acting like a capo. And it's you know, I don't have to bar everything because these 2 fingers are covering the lowest 2 strings, but I gotta make sure I get these 3 in the middle, the D, G, and B strings. Alright, so there's our G shape. Next is our E shape, which is going to be this, right? So our E shape, there's our root, C, and then finally we got our D shape. And D, you know, it's like this. We gotta rearrange our fingers and slide it up a fret, and then make sure we cover that open string. So whatever note is on the D string here is our root, or this. So the C is going to be up here. And you know, just like how we sometimes play D like that, D over F sharp, those notes also count, and then this one. But it's hard to play. I get those. I can't really do that. Maybe if you have enormous hands or extra knuckles or something, or a good friend, maybe he'll help you out. Yeah. So anyway, so now we've got C using the A shape, C using the G shape, C using the E shape, and C using the D shape. C-A-G-E-D. What that also does, well, let's just say at this point, if we want to keep going, we're just starting over. here is C again, right? This is just the exact same thing, but moving it up an entire octave and barring the 12th fret. C, A, G, E, D, C. Shape. Those are chord shapes. Those aren't the names of all of those chords that I just played are all C chords. Now, the next thing that we learned from the CAGED system is where the chord tones are. So, you know, this, well, like this is sharing this, the same root. So it's like if you visualize it, you kind of have to think about it, work on this a little bit on your own, and think about where these chord tones are, you know, and then you start to see, you know, we're covering every note on the neck that is part of a C triad by doing this. You know, you've got this chord, all of those notes are obviously part of the C, but also this, which comes from the G shape. Hopefully you kind of see what I'm doing there. But you could imagine dots underneath, you know, or stars, or, you know, pictures of little kitten faces, or whatever you want to picture, underneath the notes that are part of the C chord. And that can shift around to all different types of chords. Now the final step that I kind of use to help my students find even more chord voicings, I mean this covers major chords, right? C, A, G, E, D shapes are all major shapes. But they also translate to minor chords, and you could add extensions and alterations, sevenths and flat fives and sharp nines and all that kind of stuff. Depends on how far out you want to take it. And there's, you know, a ton of possibilities. If you were to buy a book of chord voicings, like here's, you know, 2,000 chord voicings for guitar or something, nobody's going to sit there and learn all 2,000 chord voicings. And nobody just knew 2,000 to make a book. What they did was they took a system and went through like a very formulaic sort of method to find each of these chords. And the formula is not hard. It's simply taking the caged shapes and changing, like if you want it to be a minor chord, you just have to lower the third a half step. So a chord that we all know, the A chord, if we want to make this A minor, it's this shape, right? So similarly, if this is D major, if we take these three fingers and make them look like an A minor, there's your D minor. So that's where that comes from. And you know, if we want to make this an A minor 7, we're adding a G, right? So the seventh of an A minor 7 is a G. So there's a G, that open string. So the same thing, like D minor 7. Another way you can play that, an A minor 7 is like this. So it's hard to do that on a D minor 7 to get that note, because I mean, it still works because now you have an octave, but you can do this then. Just lose the bar, just play the top 4 strings. When you play this, this is another way to play D minor 7, and it comes from this shape. And you're not playing the root down here, but that's okay. You've got a bass player, or a piano player, or not, or you know, a acoustic guitar player. Somebody is covering that note maybe, and you don't have to play it. You don't have to have the root on the bottom of every chord. So you kind of can spend some time with this, and you can see that eventually there's really no chord you can't figure out. Let's just take a chord. How about D7 sharp 9? Okay, so let's start with a shape like let's start with the C shape. So how do we make this C a C7? Well, we got to add a B flat. Most people know this shape, right? And now, if we want to add, what would I say, D7 sharp 9? We got to add a sharp 9. Well, what's the ninth of C? Of a C shape is a D is the ninth. So where's a D? Right here. And now we got to raise that 9 to make it a sharp 9. So I'm just going to move it up a half step. So this is my C shape C7 sharp 9. It's the dominant 7 sharp 9 voicing that is built from just a C shape. It's like this. And if I move that up now, there's my D7 sharp 9. It's like a Foxy Lady, or I think. Jimi Hendrix, he played that chord. Played that chord a lot. And you can continue to explore. I could sit here for hours and talk about chord voicings, but you'll learn them a lot better if you figure it out on your own. And finally, how do you, a lot of times students are like, well, how am I going to learn all of these chord voicings? Well, you can't learn them all at once unless you're a super genius, which I am not. And so what I used to do was just take a song that I was learning or a song that I already knew and figure out how to play the chord progression in a different place on the neck. So if the chord progression is C, G, A minor, F, 1, 5, 6, 4, we all know that. I could say, I'll start with the A shape. C, G is my 5, A minor, 4. Right? So there's another way to play it. How about if we start with the G shape? Then my G chord is going to be the D shape, and then A minor, F. So we're using the same ones we used last time in here. C, G, A minor. Now here, this A minor, it comes from the D shape, but it's the D minor up here. And I'm actually kind of cheating on it a little bit. I'm borrowing. Okay, I hope you see where that comes from. C, G, A minor, and then F. So you see we can work our way up the neck. Every voicing that you start on C, you can figure out the other voicings that are close to it for the rest of the progression. So just work your way through that. If it's like adding D7 sharp 9 type of chords or chords that kind of have those funky alterations, you just have to look for songs that have them, and then start, trying different voicings every time that comes up. Eventually, you'll get that under your hands, and it'll make sense in your head. So, yeah, there you go. CAGED system, kind of a crash course. Hope that helps.